3:45 a.m. Somewhere in the North Atlantic right now, at a depth you can't see and a location nobody will confirm, a Russian submarine is moving. It isn't firing. It isn't threatening anyone. Not yet. It's just watching, waiting, mapping the ocean floor, tracking the thick, armored fiber optic cables that carry 95% of the world's internet traffic. It is practicing the exact routes it would take if an order ever came through. And here's the part that should keep you up at night. The US Navy isn't entirely sure where it is. This isn't a Cold War history lesson. This is happening right now, this year, in 2026. And by the end of this video, you will understand why top military planners consider Russian submarine operations in the Atlantic to be the single most dangerous, asymmetric threat the West faces today. To understand why this matters, we have to look past the surface. You need to understand what the Atlantic Ocean actually is. It's not just a body of water. It is a massive, liquid highway connecting North America to Europe. The cables resting on its abyssal plains carry over $10 trillion in daily global banking transactions, secure military communications, and civilian internet. The trade routes crossing its surface feed hundreds of millions of people every single, control the Atlantic, or even threaten to disrupt it. And you hold an economic chokehold over the entire Western world. Russia knows this. They've known it since the Soviet era. During the Cold War, the Soviet Navy relied on what was called the GUGI gap strategy, a patrol line running from Greenland to Iceland to the United Kingdom. The goal was simple: position submarines to cut NATO supply lines the moment a hot war broke out. If you starve Europe of American reinforcements, you win the war without ever needing a land invasion. That strategy never disappeared. It just went quiet for a few decades while Moscow's economy rebuilt. Now it is back, upgraded, and far more sophisticated than most people realize. Let's talk about the weapon at the dead center of this crisis, the Yuzin M-class submarine. Forget what you know about grandfather's Soviet submarines, those loud, rattling steel tubes that could be heard from miles away. The Yuzin M is one of the most advanced, lethal underwater vessels ever engineered. It runs quieter than almost anything the US Navy has deployed to track it. It can operate for months without surfacing, and it is designed specifically to slip past the multi-billion-dollar detection networks the West built up during the late 20th century. But how does it do it? The secret isn't just stealth coatings, it's mathematics. In the dark of the deep ocean, radar is entirely useless. Light doesn't penetrate past 200 meters. The only way to see is to listen. Submarine detection relies on a formula called the acoustic figure of merit. Essentially, your ability to catch a sub depends on the source level, the noise the submarine makes, minus the ambient noise of the ocean, like waves, whales, and commercial shipping traffic. For decades, the US enjoyed an overwhelming advantage. Soviet submarines used loud, massive cooling pumps for their nuclear reactors. They rattled, they buzzed, and their propeller blades created air bubbles, a process called cavitation, that screamed out across the hydrophones. The Yuzin M completely flipped the equation. Instead of relying on noisy mechanical pumps, its fourth-generation KTP-6 pressurized water reactor uses natural circulation when running at patrol speeds. The pumps simply turn off. The moving parts disappear. Combine that with a seamless hull covered in advanced, rubberized anechoic tiles that swallow active sonar pings, and the Yuzin M's noise level drops below the background hum of the ocean itself. When a 14,000-ton nuclear submarine is quieter than the water surrounding it, it becomes mathematically invisible to passive sensors. And this isn't an isolated experiment. In early 2026, the commander-in-chief of the Russian Navy confirmed that Moscow is aggressively accelerating its fleet transition. Legacy, loud Soviet-era hulls like the Akula and the Oscar II are being systematically decommissioned. Russia is consolidating its underwater power into a hyper-focused fleet of 12 dedicated Yuzin-class vessels, split evenly between the Pacific and the Northern fleets. They are trading raw numbers for total technological dominance, and they are pushing them deeper into the Atlantic than we have seen since 1987. But as dangerous as the Yuzin M is, it is only half of the story. There is another, far more secretive layer to Russia's Atlantic deployment. It operates under a name that few civilians have ever heard: GUGI, the main directorate for deep-sea research. GUGI does not report to the regular Russian Navy commands. They don't take orders from standard fleet admirals. They report directly to the Ministry of Defense in Moscow. They are, for all practical purposes, an independent underwater intelligence agency, the Undersea Spetsnaz. On the surface, GUGI operates specialized vessels like the Yantar. To the public, it's an oceanographic research ship. But beneath the hull, it carries deep diving, crewed submersibles, and robotic rovers capable of descending thousands of meters. Even more alarming are their specialized, elongated nuclear motherships, like the massive Belgorod. These giant submarines are designed to carry smaller, nuclear-powered microsubs, like the infamous Losherik, clamped to their underbelly. These microsubs don't fight other ships. They do something much more calculated. They crawl along the pitch-black ocean floor, operating in areas where the pressure would crush a standard military submarine. And their primary target is the digital infrastructure of the West. Right now, over 400 submarine cables crisscross the ocean bed. They are the invisible nervous system of the modern world. They don't just host your internet traffic. They clear $10 trillion in daily financial transactions, secure NATO command loops, and manage cloud data for the world's largest economies. And they are completely undefended. GUGI's peacetime mission isn't just to map these cables for destruction. It is to tap them. By attaching highly specialized recording pods directly onto unencrypted fiber optic lines miles below the surface, they can intercept massive data streams before those signals ever hit land. And if a conflict ever breaks out, they don't have to cut thousands of miles of wire. They just have to target the primary data hubs, the choke points where transatlantic lines bunch together near the coastlines of Ireland, Scotland, and the Azores. Within hours, a coordinated GUGI operation could plunge entire Western nations into an information blackout, paralyzing stock markets, stopping supply chains, and blinding military command structures before a single conventional missile is ever launched. To understand how NATO expects to fight this, you have to look at the rigid geometry of the sea. Submarines cannot simply materialize in the middle of the ocean. To get from their heavily fortified naval bases in the Arctic Kola Peninsula into the open Atlantic, Russian vessels must pass through a tight geographic gauntlet. The GUGI Gap. During the old Cold War, this gap was a total trap. The US and its allies lined the seabed with a massive hydrophone network called SOSUS. If a Soviet boat tried to cross that line, its loud acoustic signature tripped the underwater sensors, and NATO forces immediately began tracking it. But today, in 2026, that tripwire is fraying. Not only are modern hulls too quiet for legacy sensors, but Russia has aggressively expanded the playing field. Look over here, the Orsun Strait and the entry points to the North Sea. Throughout 2025 and into 2026, Western intelligence agencies have logged a massive, unprecedented spike in hybrid maritime activity in these shallow waters. Russia isn't just using military hulls here, they're deploying their shadow fleet. These are aging, unflagged oil tankers, converted fishing trawlers, and civilian, disguised research vessels. They move through the narrow straits constantly, creating a wall of acoustic clutter, noise pollution, and physical disruption. Under international maritime law, these civilian vessels have the right of transit. Nordic authorities can watch them, but they cannot legally stop them without risking an international incident. And beneath that cover of civilian noise, Russian assets are systematically mapping the shallow approaches to Europe's northern coastlines, testing how close they can get to critical offshore wind farms and energy pipelines before NATO defense systems react. The old boundaries of the Cold War have dissolved. The front line is everywhere. If stealth hulls and infrastructure espionage weren't enough to worry naval planners, Russia has introduced a new variable that completely shatters NATO's traditional surface defense models: the 3M-22 Zircon hypersonic missile. Historically, if an enemy submarine launched a cruise missile from the mid-Atlantic, a carrier strike group or a land-based air defense battery had a comfortable window of 15 to 30 minutes to track the launch, calculate the trajectory, and shoot it down. Those missiles flew below the speed of sound. The Zircon entirely rewrites the rules of engagement. The Zircon travels at Mach 9, that is roughly 7,000 miles per hour. At that speed, the sheer friction against the air creates a layer of superheated plasma around the missile. This plasma shield absorbs radio waves, effectively rendering the missile invisible to conventional radar systems during its high-altitude cruise phase. Air defense systems don't even realize it's there until its terminal descent. Let's look at the raw timeline of a worst-case scenario. If a Yazan-M submarine launches a Zircon missile from a hidden position in the mid-Atlantic toward a major command center on the US East Coast or a port city in Western Europe, The total flight time from launch to impact is less than 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That is not enough time for an air defense battery to boot up its secondary tracking systems. It is not enough time to scramble fighter jets, and it is certainly not enough time for political leaders to make a calculated decision. By integrating these hypersonic vertical launch cells directly into their quietest attack submarines, Russia has shifted the entire role of their underwater fleet. They are no longer just looking to sink ships or scout positions. They have created a highly survivable, forward-deployed, hypersonic nuclear and conventional strike platform that can hold Western capitals hostage from international waters with zero warning. The Western alliance is not blind to this. The Pentagon and NATO commands know that the era of uncontested Atlantic dominance is dead and buried. And what we are witnessing right now, in 2026, is a massive, multi-billion-dollar mobilization to claw back control of the deep ocean floor. The Western counter-strategy is built on 3 distinct pillars. First, the P-8 Poseidon and the expansion of Operation Baltic Sentry. Operating around the clock from RAF Lossiemouth in Scotland and Keflavik in Iceland, fleets of advanced maritime patrol aircraft are dropping vast webs of multi-static sonobuoys into the freezing waters. These buoys work in teams. One emits a powerful active ping, while others sit silently, listening for the faint distortion an invisible Yazan M hull leaves behind as it moves through the sound field. Simultaneously, in the shallow Baltic and North Seas, NATO has deployed a permanent screen of crewed frigates and uncrewed autonomous surface drones to intercept the accidental anchor-dragging incidents that have plagued Western infrastructure. Second, the smart cable revolution. Realizing that physically patrolling millions of miles of pipe and wire is impossible, the European Commission backed a €347 million cable security toolbox in early 2026. This initiative funds the deployment of smart cables, undersea fiber lines built with integrated acoustic and seismic sensors. Instead of waiting for a line to be cut, these cables use the fiber optic strands themselves to feel changes in water pressure and acoustic vibrations. The exact second an unflagged vessel or an uncrewed underwater vehicle approaches the infrastructure, naval commands are instantly alerted with precise GPS coordinates. And third, the silent hunters. Ultimately, the most effective weapon against a stealth submarine is an even better submarine. The U.S. Navy is deploying its latest Virginia-class attack submarines directly into the high North Atlantic. Equipped with massive, bow-mounted large aperture sonars, these crews engage in a high-stakes, silent game of hide-and-seek. They hunt for the faint mechanical signatures of the Russian fleet, tracking them through the ocean's thermal layers, underwater temperature shifts that act like acoustic mirrors, capable of hiding a submarine or misdirecting a sonar ping. The battle for the North Atlantic is no longer about massive lines of battleships or dramatic surface engagements under the sun. This is a silent, invisible, multi-dimensional war fought in the freezing dark, thousands of meters below the waves. It is a shadow conflict where a single severed data line can cripple a modern economy, and a single undetected hull can hold an entire continent at bay without ever firing a single shot. The clear line between peacetime deterrence and active conflict has completely dissolved into the gray zone of the deep ocean floor. For 30 years after the fall of the Soviet Union, the Atlantic felt secure. It felt like a safe, blue buffer protecting the Western world from the geopolitical chaos of Eurasia. In 2026, that buffer is completely gone. The ocean floor is the new front line. If this deep dive gave you a clearer picture of the silent war playing out right now beneath the waves, let me know in the comments below. Do you think NATO's current response is fast enough to secure our digital and energy lifelines? And if you want to explore the secret engineering behind the Zircon hypersonic missile or the next major flashpoint in global naval strategy, hit that subscribe button. We look beneath the surface of the news cycle, covering exactly what the mainstream headlines miss. The situation is developing. Stay informed, and thank you for watching.